Good evening. Tonight, a special investigation about a real person, Barbara Goodman Barnett, the woman and the legend, is brought to you by the Lady Vest Council of America. Lady Vests, whether you're running errands around town or on vacation with the family, don't leave home without one. How many times has your family sat around the kitchen table and asked, who is Barbara Goodman Barnett? Have you been at a party and that name comes up again and again, and no one seems to know her true identity? Tonight's top priority is to explore all the rumors surrounding this mysterious woman and hopefully come away with some reasonable answers.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock.
Her birth certificate claims she was born in Jackson Heights, later to be nicknamed the drug capital of the world. Coincidence? We'll let you decide. She was raised in a building that housed many working-class liberal families, and during Barbara's elementary school years, her parents agreed to bus their little girl to an all-black school. To this day, that incident has had a lasting effect on her choice of public transportation. Her mother, Shirley, always the worried but loving parent, apparently never let Barbara cook, clean, or get sick.
We had some great times spending our summers in the Catskills. You remember when I got that fish hook stuck in my pinky? We couldn't tell Mommy because she probably would have fainted. So we got some other lady to take us to the doctor.
Her father, Adam, was his own man. He drove a taxi. On the weekends, with Barbara by his side, he would tell his passengers, "Today, I'm giving all my tips to my little girl." True? We have no reason to believe otherwise. He loved the family dearly and would find any excuse to drive to Baltimore to see his relatives.
Barbara is my extremely cool New York cousin. I was a kid from Baltimore in the suburbs. We went by car everywhere. When I came to New York to visit Barbara, it was exhausting. Long, long blocks, walking block after block, up the subway stairs, down the subway stairs, in the train, taxis.
Her brother Barry, referred to as the King, was a great older sibling and had a lot of influence on his kid sister.
I don't remember one fight with Barbara. She was very easy to get along with. I do remember being somewhat of a pain to her when I made believe I was Dick Butkus and Barbara was my tackling buddy.
Barbara claims that Barry and his friends were put on this earth to torment her, to make her life so unbearable that she would eventually have to move out, leaving Barry in sole possession of their bedroom. Rumors have it she graduated from Queens College in the mid-70s, majoring in communications. But that wasn't good enough for Miss Goodman. Friends tell us she used to hang around the theater department where she met up with several questionable characters, some of which would remain her closest friends for the next 30 years, later to be known as the Dolls.
Dolls came about by I had my eccentric Aunt Sybil. Now, I only give money to something I'm gonna get. So I would tell my friends these stories, and they're laughing, and then I started saying to them, hi doll, and then it just stuck. And we still remain the Dolls.
Barbara is, I think, among all of us, she is the steady rock.
Yes.
She's reliable, she's always there, she is the glue.
Barbara will be the one that picks up the phone. And Barbara will always call. I'm just checking in, doll. Is everything okay?
But we mustn't forget, the Dolls first cemented their friendship in the Queens College Theater Department. One production still raises many questions.
Our assignment was to kind of start with a silent film, tell the whole story through visual, no sound. You know, we could do a music track, kind of like The Perils of Pauline, and that's actually what we decided to do.
This is Barbara right here, and Barbara was just tied to the railroad tracks.
Right.
She's tied to the tree here. And here's Joe, and here's James. And anyway, that was one of the films.
Yeah, I remember those years. It was always just a lot of fun, just hanging out with, you know, with the group.
After graduating from college, both Barbara and Miss Fabian were still living at home but wanted out in a bad way. Or, as Barbara's mother liked to say, she lives alone in my house. It was the summer of 1977 when they both made their move.
Our first apartment was in Rego Park. Barbara remembers addresses and phone numbers, which was a skill a long time ago before everything was electronic. But I don't remember the address. But we got on the waiting list for Stuyvesant Town. We wound up being called for an apartment on 20th Street and 1st Avenue.
In the late 70s, Barbara proceeds to infiltrate the world of media, hanging out with high-profile celebrities such as Kiss, Parliament Funkadelic, and Diana Ross, which makes sense if you trace her roots back to the days when she was hounding the movie stars of the silver screen. For the first time, people began taking notice. Her father Adam summed it up best when he told her, "I don't know what you do for a living, but they pay you too much." Barbara grows impatient sitting behind her desk and starts thinking about a job in media sales.
There was this one company and one guy that she was told to pitch to. She asked me to help write some cover letters for her. Well, the guy starts falling in love with the letters. He contacts Barbara, and he keeps telling her how much he loves her letters. I remember once I had root canal and she came over and I had to write the letter for her because he's used to my letters and he loved that. Then I think she finally got the job, but she thought I was still single and she thought this is going to be like Cyrano de Bergerac, a great setup for me. So she set me up on this blind date with this guy and it was like horrible. You know, I didn't like one thing about him.
Did he know you were the letter writer?
No, he never found out I was the letter writer.
Barbara and I always had completely different types. So there was never conflict about that. So we went out to a small club. One of the dates turns to us and says, "Would you girls like me to make a request?" And Barbara said, "Yes, see if you can play low and far." And the guy was so stupid that he went over to the guy and made that request. Barbara and I made a list of automatic turnoffs. So a used girl's secretaries and food particles in the tea.
At this point in time, Miss Fabian falls for musician and music producer Doug Epstein. At the record show on Yom Kippur 1980, Barbara has the use of the facility all to herself.
He didn't want to move to Stuyvesant Town because there was no air conditioning. And I didn't want to move into his West 69th Street apartment.
There was also chocolate cake still on the wall that I hadn't cleaned up for my previous birthday party.
Yeah, it was pretty grimy. We found an apartment on West 82nd Street, 15 West 82nd Street. And I guess pretty much shortly after we moved out, you moved in.
But we're getting ahead of our story. A few months prior to Liz and Doug's departure, Miss Goodman meets up with this guy, David Barnett. I met Barbara online, but not the internet online. I actually met her online at a disco in West Hampton. The first three people I'm introduced to are Barbara's. There was Barbara Fallig, Barbara Gerstenfeld, and Barbara Goodman. I was attracted to her immediately. So that following winter, I ran into her at a party. We spent the entire evening talking, and it was great. Everything seemed perfect. She was cute in so many ways. She had this really quirky sense of humor that I loved. My mother put it best, and she said to me that Barbara seemed like medicine for me, and I'd be crazy to let her go. Between June and September, New York City can be a hot, deserted town. Barbara needed an alternative. There were the summers upstate and in Hampton Bays.
When we had the house in the Hamptons, there was a poultry farm nearby. Dennis Fox said that he was going to barbecue a duck. He didn't really know how to make the duck. I don't know whether it was too many beers, the summer blonde that we all put in our hair at the beach that seeped into our brains, but we all ate it without protest. And that night was the origin of going to the sink. Barbara Goodman, oh, Barbara. She was always a woman of mystery. I thought she was really sweet when I met her. Then she told somebody at work to suck her dick.
There were the summers on Fire Island, which led to the weekends in Amagansett.
We first met Barbara about 20 years ago in Amagansett, where she was introduced as the wife of David Barnett.
They met online.
A likely story. They kept their activities in Amagansett very undercover. In fact, they kept to themselves in the basement, so much so that they became known as the Mole People.
She was also known as Mrs. Chocolate Boy.
It was 1977 that we met, and it's a day I'll never forget. First person who ever went with me to see Rocky Horror Picture Show. It was wonderful.
Last August at Amagansett, we collected this wine glass used by Barbara and this toothbrush. Guess what? There is no record of Barbara Goodman anywhere. What is this, some sort of joke?
She is an excellent joke teller. In fact, look what we just pulled out.
There were the summers in West Hampton, which led to Camp Killaday.
One of my earlier memories of Barbara is going on a very nice weekend vacation. It was evident from the start that Barbara was neither paranoid schizophrenic, bipolar disorder, or schizoaffective disorder. But I thought, surely beneath all that pleasant exterior, there must be something. She could be borderline personality disorder. But then I thought, Barbara has such a wonderful way of integrating positive and negative experiences. I said, no, she's certainly not that. She could be narcissistic. But Barbara's one of the most selfless people I know, so I knew she couldn't be that. Maybe she's schizoid. I went through self-defeating personality disorder, avoidant personality disorder. You know, the more I think about it, I don't think I could get a copay from her if I tried.
As president of Camp Killaday, how did you find Barbara to be as a camper?
Tremendous camper. She was very good with lanyards.
How does Barbara get along with the other campers?
Very well. She's a popular camper. The other campers love her. We've had some issues with respect. She did laugh in the face of a Bosco Bell tour guide, which was a little problematic. There was also an antique store owner in Nyack who had a couple of issues. And one man, unnamed, sent in a letter. He was giving directions on the side of the road in Nyack. Also, once again, it's laughing in the face.
There were the weekends in Baltimore with David's oldest friends and Barbara's cousins.
Barbara is the sweetest, kindest.
Barbara Barnett?
Barbara Barnett. She's the sweetest, kindest, fairest person.
Well, what about like when she
honest
starts
person.
throwing dishes and cups and saucers and things like that when she gets so angry?
And then there was that moment on the Fire Island ferry when David confesses his love to Miss Goodman. And so what began as an innocent friendship, sharing Diet Cokes on the beach in West Hampton, escalates into a full-blown affair. Before long, these two Jews get married in 1982 in a ceremony that can only be described as a rabbi's study.
The night before their wedding, I stayed at their Stuyvesant Town apartment In the morning, we got up, we got dressed, we got Lindsay ready. She was probably 3 or 4 years old. We hailed a cab. We went to the rabbi's study. They got married. No fuss, no muss.
I remember going to the wedding. I don't remember much about the wedding. I was little. I could talk about her as a stepmom. Very much like the stereotype of a stepmother, which is evil. No, she's the opposite of that. She is the best, nicest, warmest stepmother a girl could have.
4 a.m. on January 23rd, 1987, Barbara and David are spotted during a blizzard walking in the back of Stuyvesant Town, just 2 blocks from Beth Israel Hospital. Several days later, Barbara is seen back in her apartment holding what appears to be a tiny human being. To the casual observer, Barbara and this new baby, Alexandra Lauren, seem to be related.
If my words did glow.
It turns out Phyllis and Joe own a farmhouse and several acres upstate. They say for the right price, they may be convinced to sell the Barnetts a parcel of land deep in the woods. Eventually the deal falls through, but determined to pursue their dream, Barbara and David decide to build a vacation house nearby.
So,
upstate.
Phyllis and I got married. We bought a house upstate, and most people wouldn't stay in the house. It was just like, but you guys, Barbara and David, were put up with it, and even when it was the haunted house, as we called it, and they stayed and just kind of loved being there. And I think that kind of gave you guys the impetus to decide to maybe buy something. And we said, you know, I said, there's like 14 acres here, maybe we can sell you some property. And that turned into a 2-year process where David and I went to month after month of town meetings trying to get permission to subdivide this property.
When their house got built, which was beautiful, we had our house being worked on. We went and stayed at Barbara and David's house. Allie and Ben, they had a playroom for the kids with the TV.
Oh, right.
And it was great. It was great because we would drop them in the playroom and they would watch TV and play games, and we would be able to hang out in the kitchen or in the living room. All of a sudden they would start screaming, "Apple juice! Apple juice!" It was this wild call. One of us would come with the apple juice and give them, and then they would go back to what they were doing.
Rumors have it that not only did the Famiglietis plant seeds in their heads about building a house upstate, but also about having another baby. Skip ahead to March 29, 1992, and Barbara begins getting labor pains. She has just enough time to call her mother. Dr. Dershowitz arrives on the scene and tells Barbara she's going to deliver any minute. Now Alex's world is turned upside down. Overnight, she has to share her room, her toys, her parents, and worst of all, her big sister Lindsay, with this new tiny human that has changed everything forever. With the addition of Joanna, authorities speculate Barbara has everything she wants. With the family squeezed into a 700 square foot apartment in Happy Town, Barbara was feeling too confined. New York City seemed like one big party, and she wasn't invited. Like so many before her, she decides it's time to follow the exodus out of the city.
You're from Jackson Heights? I'm from Jackson Heights. You named your first daughter Alexandra? I named my first daughter Alexandra. You moved to Westchester? I moved to Westchester.
Westchester. I got everybody to come to Westchester. So I left the city, I moved up to Hastings. And Barbara said, "Oh, I hate now schlepping upstate on weekends, and we're back and forth, and with the kids." And I said, "I'm telling you, come up here. If I can do it, anybody can do it."
On July 4th, 1993, the family is spotted moving all their possessions into a building in Westchester County. A few hours later, the Barnetts show up at the town pool in Hastings-on-Hudson. We managed to track down two neighbors.
The first time I saw Barbara was the kiddie pool in the summer of 1993 at the town pool. And we immediately struck up a conversation and discovered that our children were a month apart. I told her about other people with kids our age, and by the fall we had established a play group. And in the play group, what we discovered, everyone else wanted to take their babies home for a nap, and there would be me and Barbara. This is when a nap means stroller to us, so we would throw the baby seats in the car and go on an adventure. And that's truly how we became friends, like two strangers in a car. One time we went to ride, we were in a store, and I wanted to try on a shirt, and I gave Barbara Jordan's hand, and I said, Barbara, hold his hand. And I go try on my shirt, I come out, and every shoe is off the display in the store. And I look at her, I said, hold his hand. But also, we had so many adventures where we let Margot and Allie babysit.
The four of us would go out, and we would leave Margot and Allie, yes, cooking, fire, no problem. But we would come back, and the kids would have created these elaborate stage shows with playbills, costumes, casting, scripts, productions of Rugrats, Madeline,
a
circus, incredibly elaborate productions.
At this point, Barbara decides to take it up a notch with her career. She enrolls in the New York School of Interior Design. Her first stop upon graduating was in retail in Rye, New York.
She worked in Persnickety, which was a furniture store, and that meant she had to work on Saturdays, which meant her dad would be like with us hanging out on the weekends, and we wouldn't really know what to do. He would try to take us on these adventures that would always be like end up us going to the dump. So the best adventures would be when we would go and drive to her store and call her from outside and be like, so we're thinking of maybe stopping by, but really we would be like in the doorway, and then we would burst in and surprise her.
And then we would hang out with her at work. And on the way, we made up the game 287. So you get points for seeing speed limit signs. Without her, we really had no life. Michelle and I would just go to Persnickety to hang out, and we would walk by the outside of the store and be like, that store looks so cool, to try to get other people to come in.
Her second stop was an architectural firm based in Hastings-on-Hudson. Sources tell us its proximity to her neighborhood might be why she's been spotted at a dog park near the Yonkers border.
When I first met Barbara, she was a normal civilian of the humankind, and then she started hanging around with this little furry guy, not David, and all of a sudden she changed.
The years start adding up and the family's growing. Lindsay and her husband Rafa give birth to a handsome young wise guy. Barbara insists Leo call her Babsy. Already her competitive side comes out. Leo is no match for Barbara when it comes to Candyland. Today, Barbara can be found using the Stickley line of furniture in White Plains to hustle even more finances into the Barnett coffers.
Barbara is so sweet. I love her. She's always so nice. She'll give me a ride sometimes.
Barbara is unbelievably vicious. I'm constantly having to resolve fights on the floor with her. She's stealing other people's customers. She's always demanding stuff from me.
I'm very patient, quiet, and humble.
You would think that she wrote like $3 million the way that she acts. She seems like this nice, mild-mannered person, but I'm telling you.
She tells me about her dog, and
I don't even know who Barbara Goodman is.
But wait, that's not all. Joanna graduates high school and the family is on the move again. This time further up the Hudson in Tarrytown, New York. In Miss Goodman's words, she needs a place that's bustling. She has her eye on what she calls the South Beach House and won't take no for an answer.
When they're
South Beach house in Tarrytown. She really doesn't like throwing anything out, so she tried to get me on her side, saying, Dad has tried to throw out the Chinese checker set. We hadn't played Chinese checkers in a really long time. Made me like run after the bear that Dad was throwing out.
You might need that bear sometime.
Yeah.
In the future.
She's also good at accumulating things though. Like if we go to a drugstore,
She'll go into like a mint because she's a little nauseous in the car.
and it'll end up being like a half hour.
She's not really allowed to just run into the house for something.
Now that time has passed, we seem to have a clearer understanding of the woman they call Barbara Goodman Barnett. She has 3 wonderful daughters: Alex, a doctoral student in Chicago; Joanna, an undergraduate at Vassar; Lindsay, a talented designer and loving mom; Rafa, a son-in-law and a real estate tycoon; Leo, a superhero grandson; and David, a deadbeat husband who's sticking to her like a cheap suit. And the best group of friends a doll could ever ask for. After all these years, she's got it all. But is she happy? As Barbara's mom Shirley used to say, who's happy?
You might want to sing it note for note, don't worry. Be happy. In every life we have some trouble. When you worry, you make it double. Don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry. Be happy now.